What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And today's video is about Colby Covington once again. Well, really about Jorge Masvidal's interview on the Jaxxon Podcast. But this is where he opens up about Colby Covington. And for the first time, at least that I'm aware of, he talks openly about the assault incident in Miami following the podcast with the Nelk boys when he talked about Jorge Masvidal, and they had the fight and the press conference, and he said a lot of negative things about Jorge Masvidal's family and so on and so forth. Jorge Masvidal found him, assaulted him, and then ensued an entire complex legal issue surrounding that assault. But anyways, I wanted to highlight this interview, this episode. If you guys haven't seen it, once again, Jaxxon has become one of my favorite interview shows for mixed martial artists. I love when they have athletes on. They always get amazing clips. I wish they would timestamp their episodes. I think they don't intentionally because they want people to watch it in its entirety, these episodes, which are all amazing. But anyways, I went through regardless, and I found all the good clips regarding Jorge Masvidal's beef and kind of general history with Colby Covington. So I wanted to go through this and comment on this. I also wanted to go back to some old Colby footage where he references the beef and gives his opinion. Now, since the time that Jorge and Colby fought, I think we've really got to see Colby's true colors. Now, I'll never sit here and talk negatively about him as a fighter because I just feel like it doesn't make sense. He would destroy me in a fight. He's way better than I am. So what can I say on that front? But where I can comment on are his principles, the way he carries himself, the fact that he lies constantly. That I don't appreciate, and that I feel like I have the right to comment on just as a man, as a human being. And I don't agree with it. I don't condone it. I feel like it sets a terrible example for people and for the youth as well. So that I will talk freely about. The fighting stuff, obviously, he's a professional. He was at the top of the game at one time, so I'll steer clear of that. But anyways, let's get into the story. So we start at the beginning where we begin. And for those of you guys who are coming on and saying, well, maybe Jorge's lying, maybe he's embellishing the story, I don't think he's that type of guy. That's my personal read. You tell me if you disagree. But I think what he's saying is the truth, is the authentic side. I think what Colby's saying is not. And again, Jorge also mentions that there's lots of people that have had beef with Colby, not just him. We've had John Jones. Say what you will about John Jones, but still he knew him back in the day. Tyron Woodley has had major problems with Colby and talks about his character or lack thereof. So anyways, let's jump in from the beginning, how they knew each other, how they met. Here we go.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're at the same gym. He broke his hand. His chick had kicked him out of his house, his ex. So I had a place. It wasn't far from the gym. I was letting him stay in the couch for like 9 months, live with me, and there was no like heat, and then problems started to happen, and then this motherfucker showed who he really was, But it's not just problems with me. It's like this motherfucker got problems with anybody he's ever crossed from.
He's done Kobe Bryant? No, Colby Covington. Oh, yeah.
He's had problems with Jones. He's had problems with Woodley. Yeah. I mean, and the list goes on. And coaches, he just got kicked out of his newest gym that he was at after getting kicked out of American Top Team. He was at MMA Masters. He got kicked out of there before his fight. I wonder what he did,
And you guys remember that. So that's another very telling sign. He did get kicked out of MMA Masters. I think that's a little bit of speculation. He may have left voluntarily, but it was right before his fight with Joaquin Buckley. And he had Hulk Hogan and Chael Sonnen corner him. And while that may have been an interesting spectacle, I'm sure it was not optimal. I did also have dinner recently with somebody who used to train at MMA Masters. And their perspective and their take, I won't name this person, but their perspective and their take was that Colby doesn't want to train hard anymore, is what he apparently said, and that he is just sort of going through the motions and relying on his requisite ability. But that's the problem with his progression. Apparently, that's some of the reason why he's been maybe struggling in some of these fights. Again, a little bit of speculation, throwing it out there. This is what another professional fighter has told me a few weeks ago. But this is just part of the story. So again, you see this pattern of Colby getting kicked out of gyms, having issues with people. And this is just Jorge retelling that narrative. Now we're going to move on to the next part. This is where we finally he goes in. This is the first time that I'm aware of where he actually talks about the entire incident and assault. And it actually sheds a lot of light on the entire situation, hearing it from Jorge Masvidal's side. I did think at the time, going out and assaulting somebody, kind of sucker punching them, maybe that was a bit much. I'm sure he regretted it to some extent because of what he had to deal with legally and those ramifications, although it sounds like everything is more or less worked out. But now hearing this side, the way he presents it, it makes a lot of sense if you look at everything that Colby had been saying in the media about him, saying he wanted to hurt him, kill him, I think even at some point. So check this out.
But he's just a fucking coward. He went. You guys heard of the Nug Boys before?
Yeah.
He went on their podcast in Miami and did this whole rant that he was gonna literally kill me if he saw me in the streets of Miami. He's like telling them, if I see this guy, I'll kill him. You know. And so the podcast gets released, whatever, and I see it, and just coincidentally, I'm on my way to get some acai, and I see this motherfucker. I go, oh shit, you're in my part of town. What's up, Kobe? You know, and.
I'm sure it wasn't exactly like that. I'm sure you guys know too. I think he knew where he was or found where he was. It wasn't such a coincidence, but still, okay, keep going.
You know,
you just sprung on him.
Sprung him. No, I called him by his name. He turned around and he see me. He was like, holy shit. I said, yeah. You know, I gave him money, fell to the floor. I told him, get your ass up. He looked at me like that and he took off running. And then there's a night, which you could play it on the podcast. There's a 911 call to him. He calls 911 on my ass, you know? Like, bro, you talking
That's
about
a bitch move.
You talking about you're a man? And it was
now. Let me just say, somebody does that to me, I'm gonna call 911. But I'm not a fighter. I don't think Justin would do that. So it's a fair point. I guarantee you, I haven't gotten Justin's statement on this, but I'll bet you $1 million the last thing he would do is call the cops. So say what you will. I think it's a fair point from that perspective for these guys, the way that their minds are, their mentality, the things that they say to each other. I imagine that's just not what you do. So I think that's a valid point.
It was just me and him. He made a whole report. He's like, there was people around me to make sure nobody else jumped in. But he made a whole report saying people hate him and this and that. When they seen the videos, when they seen everything, he's like, no, this is two pro fighters fighting each other. And this is why I didn't get no charges on it. He's like, and they showed a podcast. Like, well, you just threatened this man 2 hours before this incident took place. Why should we hold them accountable? And they're
so it's very interesting, by the way. We're going to keep listening to more of this because it gets more interesting. But right there, if what he's saying is true, I haven't read the police report and I haven't gone into detail on the intricacies of the case. But if this is true, then that's another account of Colby once again not being truthful, trying to exaggerate the story. And then later it sounds like law enforcement and the police and the legal system sided with Jorge Masvidal's version of events.
Already had me served like 4 hours in jail. So it was already like, man, time served and everything. Because they arrested me originally for this shit, you know? Not on site. Not on site, but like a week later, I had to turn myself in like some fucking criminals. Like, bro, it's two pro fighters got into a fucking fight. And this guy threatened the fuck out of me numerous times. And this was like the most recent one. So I just didn't understand. He also had like a fugazi-ass Rolex that he tried to say was like 60 grand. So I got hit with a felony for that, right? Because like grand damage of the property, this and that. He took this fucking fake out because he's so stupid. He doesn't know there's a forensic fucking investigator that's going to come in and say, okay, let me look at this Rolex. Your Honor, this is not even worth $1,000. Another felony off the chart. Another felony off the chart. Because there was like 2 felonies for this fugazi-ass Rolex, right?
If this is true, this is insane. So that's another lie on top of it where he tried to pass off a fake Rolex or some sort of a fake watch and say the value was way higher than what it really was. I guess they checked it out. I mean, this is true. This is crazy. That's insurance fraud. That's wild. So again, we see case after case after case of his character just not being impeccable, I guess you could say the least, which it just goes to show. And then we see the things after that event, what the things that he said to Leon Edwards, the things that he said about his broken foot, statement after statement after statement that all seems to be false. So I feel like this is all adding up. All right, now we're going to move on to the final segment of the Jorge interview that I have queued up where he's talking about the falling out. And this is apparently the beginning of the beef and the friction in their relationship. At one point, they were friends. They were hanging out. So we'll hear it one more time. You guys probably heard it. It all boils down to one of Jorge Masvidal's coaches. So check this out.
And you guys were cool before. You say
we were cool. We're at the same gym, American Top Team. And then when we started to get cool is because I played a lot of cards back then, a lot of poker. And this motherfucker would go to the casino a lot then too. She's like, damn, all right, we got the same schedule. I see him at the gym, then I come to the poker table. So it just kind of made sense. Like, yo, if you want to get that couch, give me a couple $100 a week. Give me some money for the food and shit, and we'd be good. Motherfucker couldn't pay shit. After 9 months, I was like, yo, I'm out of here, bro. I jetted out. I kept doing my thing. I had introduced him to my coach, and my coach trained him from his amateur fight all the way to his professional fight when he won the interim belt. And they did a handshake. It goes 5% for whatever you get in the fights, and I'll train you. I'm your full-time striking coach. I'll go with you. So he started with him literally since his amateur fight. First amateur fight, my coach was in his corner. He got that belt, finally got a little bit of money. Deuces on my coach, right? So he didn't pay him. So my original thing is like, I'm gonna get a baseball bat and explode his fucking kneecaps. And my coach is like, we'll end up fighting this piece of shit, but don't do nothing. Now you know what type of person it is. As soon as he did that to my coach, that's when I knew, like, all right, this motherfucker ain't shit. And we weren't friends no more. So we were still at the same gym. I said, hey, what's up? Okay, all right, hey, you keep your space, I'll keep mine. But it wasn't no animosity, nothing bad. Once I started getting ranked at 170 pounds, this motherfucker started talking about my mom, my kids, anything that he could say just to keep himself relevant. And that's why I can't fuck with him, because, you know, if you let me in your house and you gave me some food at some time, I'm always going to remember that. Maybe we're not best friends. We don't go out fishing every Sunday, but I'm not going to sit here on no microphone and talk shit about you.
Right.
You know, and this motherfucker to sell pay-per-views did. That's why I never, ever respected him or will, you know.
I think that makes a lot of sense. He opened up his doors to him. From the way he's telling it, it sounds like he did a lot for Colby, and when Colby had the opportunity, he just completely turned his back on him. Not to mention the issue with the coaches, which kicked everything off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. I think this was in March of 2022 is this clip. This is when Colby started actually responding to these allegations that he stiffed Jorge Masvidal's coach. Now, again, the word used is stiff. Not that he paid him a smaller percentage or paid him some amount, but not the full amount. The word is stiff, meaning he didn't pay him anything. He just left. That's the implication anyways. So this is Colby's version of events. This is Colby's claim to clarify what happened. He's basically saying he did nothing wrong. I don't believe it for a second, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to play a little bit of the clip, and I'm going to tell you why I don't think it makes any sense. And again, if you look at just the way that Colby has carried himself after the fact, even before this, the things that other people have said about him, it just seems as though he has an issue being truthful. And I think this is part and parcel of that entire equation. So let me play this clip, and then I'm going to respond to this purported story that he has concocted. Check this out.
Because, you know, money is the root of all evil, and to him, that's all that matters. That's why he...
I'm being a little bit of a jerk here. I wanted to start with this clip because that's a misquote. It's not that money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. I believe that's from Chaucer. So got that wrong. Just wanted to point that out. Sorry. Let's keep going.
This friendship away for money, because he realized that we could be aligned to fight each other and it'd be the biggest payday. They wanted to bury him 3 fights down. Now he's the main event on a pay-per-view against me. Why is that? Because ex-friends turn rivals. So all these fake narratives he's saying with, oh, I didn't pay my coaches. Dude, why has Dan Lambert not said one thing that he didn't pay his coaches? Because Dan knows. We have a rule at 8.
And by the way, why would Dan Lambert say something? If this is the way that Jorge is saying it, which I believe he's telling the truth, this was an external deal outside of the deal within the gym. That's what it sounds like to me, where he had a handshake deal with this guy to train him. Maybe it was because at this point he couldn't afford to be a part of the gym. I don't know. This is just my theory, but it sounds like he had a handshake deal. Why would he make this up? Why would his coach just fabricate this out of nowhere? So basically he's alluding to the notion that this is completely fabricated and he was just on a regular deal in the gym as everybody else. But even if he had this side deal with this coach, right, a handshake deal, why would Dan Lambert get involved? That's a he said, she said situation where there's nothing written. That's I assume would be external to the policy of the gym. And he knows this, and he's just saying this so he can try and have some way to get around basically saying that he totally stiffed the coach and he did something completely inexcusable. All right, let's keep hearing it, and I'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb after we let him finish this.
We did have a rule at that gym, American Top Team. You pay 5% to the gym every fight. You don't pay the coaches. Nothing else gets paid. That's all that gets paid is 5%. I always paid my 5% to Dan. I always paid.
He makes a statement to be like, you don't pay the coaches, nothing else. Like oh, as if you can't. You're not allowed to pay your coaches anything extra. Throw them a bonus or this and that. I'm sure there's no such policy as that, but I imagine that would be the bare minimum. Is what it sounds like. I'm just logically processing this as any normal person would. Let me know if you agree or disagree.
Paulino on the side, they started misreporting. They said for one fight that I made a certain X amount, which was $380,000. I'll just tell you the exact number, which I shouldn't go into that. I didn't make that amount. You can go ask Dan Lambert. I made $200,000 for that fight.
So this is the part that doesn't make sense. So he's saying he didn't have to pay the coaches anything outside of this 5% that goes to the gym. Now he's saying it has to do with the misreporting. So if you just think about it mathematically, if they're saying they thought he made 380,000, but instead he made 200,000, then the 5% of the 380,000, if you're paying it on 200,000, will be roughly half of that, right? A little bit more than half of what you would pay on the 380. So my point is, if this is now the excuse, which seems to be the new excuse, then they would have gotten some of that money, right? They would have gotten about 2.5 or 2.6% of that purported 5%, or the 5%, not, I shouldn't say purported, the 5% that they shook hands on. But I don't think that's a story. It sounds like he completely didn't pay him. So why does this misreporting have anything to do with the situation? Or are you saying that you did pay the smaller amount? I don't think that's the case. I think it's, again, just him grasping at straws, just trying to come up with different explanations and reasons. And this is what happens when people lie. You can't just, he's not just going to say one thing and put it out there and say, this is my defense. He's going to say, no, but I didn't do it because of this, also because of this, also because of that, just trying to bolster that lie. But to me, it doesn't make sense.
That's the truth. That's news. But all the clickbait merchants out there, all these virgins in their mom's basements, they're writing their little blogs, are saying that I made a certain amount. So he took their word for it. This striking coach took their word for it. So it's just so funny because he took their word for it in what? So you paid him the 5% of the 200,000 and then just didn't pay him on the 180,000. That's the beef, or did you stiff him? I don't understand. These people's words. He doesn't want to take my word. I'm telling him what I made. This is what I made. I can tell you that's what cleared in my bank account. That's why Dan Lambert hasn't said one thing that I stiffed anybody, and it was never over money. George has nothing else. It's just so stupid, because if this is the case, if he's like, why can't you take my word? This is just could be resolved so easily. You show the check stub, you show your bank account, you show the deposit slip, whatever, it's done. It's just not true. I'm sorry. There's just no two ways about it. This is completely fabricated. And maybe you already knew this if you're watching this video, so this is not news to you. You figured this out, probably did. But I just wanted to point this out. Watching this interview is very interesting now when we see everything that Colby's done in the last 2.5 years since this interview and since this fight. So I think it's pretty clear cut. Anyways, just want to show this. Now, the last thing we're going to end on is, look, I obviously train, but I've never trained professionally. I've never trained under professional coaches at the top gyms. I've never fought. I've never had to deal with all these payments and percentages and whatnot. But Justin has. And Justin not only knows what it's like to be a professional fighter, which he is one now actively, he's fought in the UFC, but also he's a coach as well. And he is going to now give his perspective on his take on something like this. What does it feel like? What does it say about a person when you do stiff your coaches who are there supporting you, having your back, and doing all of this for you so that you can be at your best?
Colby Covington is not paying his coaches. Guys, this is disrespectful on so many levels, and it really goes to show Colby Covington's true character of how much of a piece of garbage he really is. When you have coaches that are putting their heart and soul into you winning, my coaches are there. They're talking to me on the mat, off the mat, talking about my mental health, not even just training guys, not even just game planning, but your coaches are a part of your family. And to not pay what they deserve is just incredible. Colby Covington is one of the biggest pieces of garbage in MMA, and I hope he never has any more success, whether it's in the UFC or MMA in general.
All right, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm being too hard on Colby? Do you actually believe Colby, or do you wholeheartedly believe Jorge Masvidal? Like, I think 99% of people do, if I would have to guess. And let me know what you think of the Jaxxon Podcast. Like I said, it's my favorite, and want to give them a big shout out. They're doing tremendous work. Let's go Rampage Jaxxon. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.